we are now connected live with a psychologist on personal growth, Mbak Maria Gita Belinda, who will share her expertise on this particular trending issue. Good morning, Mbak Maria, Mbak Gita.
Hello.
Hi there. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Listen, before we start our conversation, we're going to check out this video.
Ini siapa? Cowok namanya siapa?
Noel.
Noel. Panggilannya?
Noel.
Noel.
Carber.
Udah berapa lama pacaran sama dia?
Nggak tahu, saya lupa.
Hah? Kok lupa?
Baru 2 minggu
Lo nembak dia di mana?
di FB.
Oh, di FB. Nama kalian siapa?
Sandi.
Sandi.
Bulan.
Udah 1 tahun?
1 bulan.
Oh, 1 bulan.
Rido bang.
Panggilannya?
Hah?
Panggilannya apa?
Kagak ada.
Kagak ada?
Iya, panggilnya Rido doang.
Redo doang?
Iya.
Dilsi.
Dilsi. Panggilannya apa?
Amoy.
Amo.
2 minggu.
2 minggu?
Iya. Aditya Pradayaka.
Panggilannya apa?
Black.
Oh, panggilannya Black.
Nanda.
Nanda. Panggilannya?
Nda.
Nda.
2.
2 bulan.
Nah.
Ini bisa kenalan sama dia dapat dari mana?
Minta nomor FB. Nama FB.
Oh, di mana tuh tempat nongkrong?
Di
Di mana?
Sabda.
Ketabrak.
Apa ya?
Ini kamu.
Starbucks. Siapa yang bayarin kalau lagi jajan? Yang bayar dia?
Saya.
Oh, oke. Itu dapat duitnya dari mana?
Hah?
Dapat duitnya dari mana?
Dapat itu
Iya, dapat duitnya.
dari orang tua.
Lu cara minta duit ke orang tua kayak gimana sih?
Mama gitu mah gitu.
Oh, gitu.
Iya.
Jadi, lu izin nggak ke orang tuanya?
Belum sih.
Belum.
Belum.
Tapi kayak ketemuan di sini, lu izin nggak ke orang tua?
Izin sih.
Izinnya apa?
Izin mau main Sudirman.
Oh.
Funny and shocking
I
all at
don't
the same
know.
time.
I don't know whether to laugh, to cry, or to be overprotective of my kids and not let them leave the house at all.
It is a little bit amusing, but there is an underlying kind of issue that
Yes,
right?
yes, and that's why we have you here, Mbak Gita, because we're really curious about this particular trend that is happening. They're becoming younger and younger. I mean, we're looking at the video. They can't be older than 15 or 16. What are your thoughts about the video? Is this defined as early puberty, or is it something else?
Okay, I think it is not common to say that the behavior as a early puberty, because early puberty itself refers to a condition when child's body starts through the changes into an adult body too soon. But the behaviors in the video, like I see before, like calling each other ayah bunda, I think it's more likely to be said as precocious behaviors or behaviors that are too mature, that are more mature than their expected ages.
Okay, that makes sense because for our viewers, in
Yeah.
case you're not familiar, ayah and bunda refers to yourself in Indonesia.
And
sometimes
mom and
we
dad.
refer to ourselves in the third person,
Mom.
saying mother and father. So
Mother
it's
and
like,
father.
hey, mother is having dinner with father tonight, where we know they're way too far to be aged to be even thinking about having a family. So then this precocious behavior. What are some of the factors behind this, do you think, Magita? Because we mentioned earlier on that kids these days are exposed to a lot more. Perhaps it's them emulating the behavior that they're watching on the internet or on YouTube or on TV. What do you think are some of the factors that are stimulating this sort of behavior with the younger children these days?
Okay, like you were mentioned before, like televisions and internet is one of the influencing factors that makes these behaviors. So basically, the most influencing factors is environment. Maybe you realize that the children tend to do what adults do. Maybe if you have children, you can see that your children will easily imitate what you do. So, because the children see that their parents call each other by mother, father, ayah, bunda, they imitate it. And they could also see videos or television shows that presents the same things. So they could easily imitate it. It is because the way children learn is through the observation. We call it in psychology bidirectional learning.
Okay.
And then the other factors, except environment that contribute a lot, it is reinforcement. Reinforcement is a psychological term also. It refers to anything that increase the probability to response will occur. To this, the behavior maybe by showing that behavior, maybe by calling each other father, mother, people around them will laugh, will think that it was funny. Nah, it could be a reinforcer for the children, so they keep showing that behaviors also.
Like we say, oh, it's so cute that they're behaving like adults, right?
Yeah.
It's very.
So besides of
No, just please continue.
okay, besides of the internet or television shows, it also that observational learning from the parents for the model in the televisions, and then the reinforcement that they get, it is the most influencing factors for those behaviors.
So I just have a curiosity because you mentioned that when the parents also do this at home, that the kids would emulate this behavior. But isn't it actually a good thing when the parents actually show affection towards each other because it makes the children feel secure? Is there a silver lining? Because this is I don't know, because I feel like when I grew up seeing my parents being very affectionate, I didn't want to emulate that particularly, but I felt more like I'm happy in a happy home, you know what I mean?
Perhaps, but you probably weren't going out meeting guys at Starbucks either.
Yeah. So
Right, yeah.
what are actually, as parents, what should we be aware of?
Okay. It's really a good thing that show affection with your partner at home, and it is nice to let children know that their parents so in love with each other. But in this term, we should make children aware that these behaviors, for example, calling each other by father and mother, is only can be shown when they are getting married. So
That's
when
right.
they just be dating like for 2 weeks, for a month, like the videos that you present before. Yeah, it's not the right time.
Yeah.
Right.
So they have to know that okay, it is good to show affection to each other, but it's not the right time.
Yeah, I do notice that. Yeah, my parents always said like, yeah, mom and dad are like this because we're your parents.
Right.
We're married, we're head of the family, and someday you get to do it. They always say that. Someday
Sure.
you get to do that.
Yeah, and we're always trying to encourage our children these days to take advantage of all the technological advances that we have, the internet, in order for them to become more critical thinkers, for them to become more independent. But how do we as parents build more effective communications with our kids so that we're able to guide them properly, so they're not just emulating behavior they see, but emulating the right behavior at the right time?
Okay, to make effective communication with the children, I think parents should make a room for discussions. You know that children maybe have rules, but they can accept discussions because they still can speak up for their ideas. So just make a room for discussion with your children.
Yeah, open discussions is always the best thing. We always try to do that, and don't treat your kids just because
Yes.
they're 7 years old. They probably don't understand. We
No.
at home in our kids, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm always doing the right thing, but we always just try to have open conversations, ask them questions about who they're hanging out with, how are your friends behaving?
Yeah.
Because I think listening to
Yeah.
what they have to say also really helps instead of us just telling them what to do.
Yeah, I think it's also very critical that we talk to them, communicate, because it really encourages them to think for themselves and build that mind filter. I think that's one of the questions. Like, it is so difficult to be so strict, right? Or be too chill. That's either you're too strict or you're just too loose about your kids, and it's really difficult to find a silver lining. What is actually the best practice when it comes to this? As a psychologist, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay. if you tell about the way the way we raise children, in psychology there is a psychological term called parenting style. I have no doubt that most people, including you guys, are also familiar with this term. It refers to the manner in which parents raise their children. There are actually two dimensions: demandingness and responsiveness. Here, demandingness refers to parents that control their child's behaviors, and responsiveness is the degree to which parents can accept and sensitive to their children's emotional needs. Some parents that are too overprotective, that you mentioned before, it is part of authoritative parenting style. So they
Helicopter
have
parents.
high demandingness. Yes, high demandingness or high expectation, but they also, but but they have no, but they have no like low responsive to their children's needs. So they used to do parental control and low levels of parental responsiveness. They usually do one-way communication through strict rules and the orders. Sometimes parents are too overprotective, so it makes children be insecure, possess low self-esteem, and exhibit more behavioral problems. And by research, the best parenting styles is authoritative.
Okay.
It is a parenting style that parents have a high expectation, but they also warm, they also supportive with their children. Here, parents could be set rules and also enforce boundaries by having open discussions, like we mentioned before. They still respect children's autonomy, provide them with a lot of freedom, but still encourage the responsibility. We call it like free but responsible.
Right.
Now, by the research, this is the best parenting styles because children will be more happy, more independent, more active, and also develop good self-esteem.
Okay,
Yeah.
but Gita, so what do we do then if, let's say, knock on wood, that's my daughter out there getting interviewed
Or mine.
at a very young age, and then if we find out about this, obviously we don't want to conflict with our child. So what's the best way to approach our child if we find them in a situation where they are expressing some sort of precarious behavior a little bit earlier than they should? What is the best way to approach this?
Okay, the best way to approach the first all is make a clear rules about what child could and could not do.
Okay.
This is part of communication actually. And we all know that communication is an important part of our daily life. Some children maybe think that their behavior is true because no one tells them about what they could and could not do. So the first step is, as a parents, we should make a clear rules. And then still make a room for discussion, make an open discussion, build a healthy relationships with children by asking them like, how do you feel? What do you do in the school? Is there any boy or girl that you like in the school, like that? And then also we have to give reward if the child shows appropriate behaviors. The reward is not always be like a present, but praising children by saying things such as a good job, it was a good thing. It's also be a reward for the children. By getting the reward, the children will know that they show good behaviors. But on the other hand, give also the punishment if the child shows inappropriate behavior. If you already set rules and you warn the children about the inappropriate behaviors, but they still continue their behaviors, you can like punish them. But you should aware that what kind of healthy punishment. Do not use physical abuse. You can simply ask them to do like extra responsibility as part of punishment.
Well, I tend to sometimes restrict my kid from internet or YouTube. That's the best thing because after that they seem to behave very well.
Yep. Well, it's very, very interesting. So, just out of curiosity, when we get to this part, how do we set the right boundaries? How do we set the boundaries?
Okay. Okay, how do we set the boundaries? Again, it's back to the communication with your children. So you should tell them what do you want them to do, what do you want to do. It will make children know what they could not and could not do.
Magita, what is the, how much flexibility should we have to allow our children who are basically pre-puberty? Obviously, our kids have a circle of friends, and those friends have a big influence on our kids' behavior as well. How much should we monitor our kids' behavior around their circle of friends, especially their close circle of friends? Because I myself, speaking from experience, sometimes I may not be in line with my kids' friends' parents with how they monitor their kids. And we may have different leniencies or different rules. What's the best way to approach our child in regards to, because the blowback from that could be, well, so-and-so's parents allow them to do this, so how come I'm not allowed? And you know, sometimes we find ourselves in a bit of a tough situation. We don't want to criticize other people's parenting, but at the same time, we want to set some proper ground rules for our own household.
Okay. So you own your children, so you know the best how to handle them. I think it's good if you already know how to behave with your children, and I know that you will get more influence for another parent, for another your child friends, but. Yeah, it is okay. It is fine to still open the boundaries with others. You also should be open with the any possible probability of parenting style, because maybe they show the better parenting style. But back again to things that I said that I said earlier, that you know that your children the best. So just do what you think is the best for your children.
Right, and real quick from me, anyway, earlier we touched on the difference between precocious behavior and actual early puberty. So how do we know that our child is experiencing one and not the other? Because it would make sense to me if somebody is actually going through early puberty that they might display similar behavior as well, but it might be biological, right? And in another sense, as Kai mentioned, one could just be psychological and they're just going through this behavior on their own. So how do we identify which is which so we know how to approach it?
Okay, how to identify? The first one, let me talk about the early puberty first. So, if your children have their first menstruation or wet dreams before the expected age, it must be early puberty.
Okay.
The baseline is is 8 years old for a girl and 9 years old for the boys. But for the precocious behavior, you could simply see your children's behaviors, and then you compare them with the most appropriate behaviors that's shown by children at the expected age for your children's age.
Right. Okay, so you have to compare it with what's actually happening to them physically. A little bit easier to identify in girls,
physically.
obviously, with menstruation. A little tougher in boys. But
Biologically, girls also change premenstrual.
Right.
So there are certain signs, if I'm not mistaken. And boys too. They experience growth spurts and certain changes before that. And I think it's just very important for us as parents to stay informed, right, Gita?
Wow.
Magita,
Having kids is complicated,
Having
isn't
kids
it?
is complicated because you need to learn more about yourself and your kids, and you need to stay on top of everything, which, by the way, I don't know, but those videos that I see scare me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a little funny at first, but then kind of thought-provoking at the same time.
It is very thought-provoking. Magita, thank you so much for this discussion.
Magita.
We learned so much, and stay healthy and safe. Hopefully next time we get to have you in the studio as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
See you.